Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Social Sales Engineer live stream. My name is Patrick, and I have a very special guest today. So welcome everybody on YouTube or LinkedIn Live. Please shoot us your comments. We want to answer them. We want to hear your opinion about our cool topic. We have a dragon here. Let's he purrs, she, I don't know, we didn't figure it out. But please welcome Lidia with me. Lidia, please introduce
yourself.
Tell me what's this all about here. We have a great...
all of it. Okay, let's start from... So, hi everyone, my name is Lidia Vasileva. I am a solutions engineer at VMware. More specifically, I work with our networking and security portfolio. So I come from I call it a traditional hardcore networking background. So to kind of explain maybe this a little bit, I threw the idea at Patrick about, Dungeons and Dragons and other bits and pieces that I think we're going to cover off right now. So that's why this buddy is over here.
Perfect. We get our first, we got it from Rebecca. Hi, Rebecca, nice to see you. Hi, everybody who's there. There's more from her. Yes, very nice. Great to see you. Lidia, welcome. Yeah, and the idea you threw at me was we had a chat, right? Why did we met? How did we met? I don't know. We were on Zoom one day. Explain.
So I started to seriously upon myself to be part of the pre-sales collective. And then I saw you and just reached out to you. And as you said, we sort of found ourselves in a Zoom call where at the end, somehow you decided that I should be here and we should be having a chat. And this idea of what is the connection between Dungeons and Dragons and role-playing games and being an SE has been in my head ever since I knew what an SE is really. And when I saw you just taking off with it, and our little pre-broadcast call, realizing how much in depth you've actually taken this idea is oh my goodness, I'm so happy that you're here.
Yeah, I think I'm more nervous today than typically, right? Because that's a topic I'm really emotional about. And thank you for sharing this, right? Because you offered it. I think you gave me some ideas for what we could talk about. You said, Dungeons and Dragons for sales engineers, and said, yes, amazing.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. With Paul, you all had me with D&D and sales engineering. Wouldn't miss this for the world. Yes, very good. Welcome, Paul. Glad to have you here. No, that's really engaging. So for everybody who is not aware what the heck we are talking about, what are we talking about? Would you quickly explain?
Okay, so the way I would describe Dungeons and Dragons, it's a tabletop role-playing game with my little caveat that a game does not do it justice. For me personally, it's a collaborative storytelling platform. It gives you the rules, it gives you the settings, it gives you some tools for you and your friends to just take and just tell your stories together. Earlier, we were just talking about the different main things, and maybe we can go over that a little bit more now. But the idea that there is one person who is sort of I wouldn't say the puppet master, but that's something that's called the dungeon master. And that is the person that sets the scene, sets the rules. And then you have the players that take the role of a single character within that setting. And they just take off. A true sandbox idea. That's the whole point.
Kyle, great to see you. Yes, I rolled a 1. So the version I play, it would be a 20 because I failed completely. Very good. Welcome, Kyle. There's another LinkedIn user. I only know it from Big Bang Theory, right? Curious about the topic for sure. Yes, Big Bang Theory, I think it became very famous there. Maybe one thing to the game master to add, right? So there are the players, whoever plays a knight or mage or whatever, if it's the fantasy setting, medieval setting, they know not everything, right? So they are just exposed to something unknown. And the game master, right, or the dungeon master, this is the person who knows everything, who weaves the story in their heads, right? And makes sure everybody has fun by putting enemies in front of them, or a building, or I don't know, whatever, like the weather, everything, right? The game master can change literally the world. A lot of power in their hands.
Absolutely.
Maybe one more thing. So if there's a game master, and maybe the game master tells you, hey, Lydia, you're in front of an ogre, and there is, I don't know, a house you can like go into. You make a decision, right, in some way, or what would you do? There's one more aspect I just want to highlight. So if you make a decision, how is it made clear if your character you play actually performs the decision? It's back to what Kyle said, right? Why am I rolling a 1? I just want to explain this, right?
Yeah. So the whole concept is, so yes, you make a decision, but then luck to a certain degree plays a role. So this is where I actually have a little die over here. So a lot of the skill checks, so that's a D20 die. So depending on the system, it doesn't have to be Dungeons and Dragons, but it's down to the dice of how well you actually do the thing. There you go. That's a D20.
Yeah.
And it's everyone. It's the players. It's the game master itself. At the end of the day, sometimes it's all about the roll of the die.
Yeah, exactly. And there's the big, that's the tension, right? Because you decide something to do with your character, and then the game master says, okay, roll your die and see if fate is with you, right? So Andy said, my FAF DM quote, DM, you think you're in a room, but you've been wrong before. Okay. Yeah, as I said, the answer, have great power, right? And they can misuse it. And there's more from Paul also. The DM writes the script and controls what happens, just like NSE. Here we go. Ha! What do you think about this?
So, I've never been a DM myself. I've always been, well, I say never. I tried being a DM, and it was a lot of responsibility. Having to make sure that everyone is having fun and everyone, it's going in the right direction and the story makes sense is quite stressful. I found I definitely prefer being a player, and a lot of the things that I find beneficial comes from that perspective. But having the brief chat with you, Patrick, and now seeing Paul's message as well, it kind of makes sense. Making sure that the story makes sense, making sure that the flow is there and that people can engage and be part of the game or the demo. Absolutely makes sense that it's connected.
Okay. And for how long have you played now as a player?
Oh, okay. So my longest still running campaign is 7 years.
Ah, amazing. So this is in one go, you build one character. Oh, I get
one character, one thing. I've graduated uni in that time. I've switched countries. I've switched careers, but she has stayed.
That's so cool. And awesome. I don't know if anybody who doesn't play can understand how much epicness this builds, right? It's just like you're building an own world where you live in. And I still remember my time, so I haven't played for some years, but I still have emotions when I think back on artificial like situations. Like I get really emotional. How about you?
I have screamed and cried, and I've gone through the whole emotional spectrum with any character, really, right? And I found in my group of friends, we talk about those moments as if they actually happened. Like, oh, remember back in the day when we did so and so? It's like, yeah, we did.
Amazing.
So it's amazing.
Yeah, and I completely share this. So, but what about the SE world? So, what do you think, like, from playing this long years? Yeah, why did you tell me, like, as an SE, I learned something from this?
Yeah, so I've been in that character longer than I have been an SE. So I joined the SE organization it's coming up to 2 years now. But from the start, completely different from what I initially expected it to be. The core importance was put behind on the actual presenting, not so much of being very technical or understanding all of the products in depth. It was more about how do you explain it? How do you tell a story? And that was the first sort of connection that I saw, which is like, oh, this sort of makes sense it's just storytelling at the end of the day. We are obviously we are demoing technology in different ways and shapes and forms, but at the end of the day, we humans love stories. We want to hear everything in stories.
Yeah.
So that's sort of what was my first look into it. And then over time, the more I thought about this topic, the more it made sense. You come in from also the perspective of the emotional intelligence, putting yourself in another person's shoes or another character's shoes, understanding where they're coming from, and also understanding where your customer is coming from an SE perspective. Being able to visualize and to understand other people's environments, in my case, when it comes to networking and security, and being able to work on from that perspective. So
yeah. Amazing. And how does it work now, let's say you have a discovery call, like, do you sometimes feel like somebody else? Now I step into a character, like, and now I play whoever. So is your sales engineering, like, a profession? Is this a role for you when you join a call?
I guess a little bit. I haven't actually thought about it in that perspective, but it's a similar feeling of, okay, like putting on your SE mask, because at the end of the day, customers look up to us as being confident, as being the ones that will provide some sort of solution, being the trusted advisor. To be a trusted advisor, for me, you need to exude a certain level of confidence. You only know how little you know yourself. That's your own sort of like the low self-esteem, the imposter syndrome, all of that. But I think it's really important walking into a conversation for you to sort of put on a mask of like, yeah, I'm confident. Even if I don't know the answer to a customer's question, I'll take it away and I'll figure it out for them. But to be that confident in walking in, absolutely. I think it is a role to a certain degree.
Yeah, I love this. I love this a lot. Maybe you have an app like where your D20 is on, so and before you say something, you like.
Oh no! What I don't want to do is right before a call do that and roll a critical fail. A 1 is just going to be like, oh no, this is going to be bad.
There's Andy again, and I love this. D&D taught me teamwork, creative problem solving, and helped me develop empathy. That's amazing. Let's start with this. Yeah, let's start with the teamwork. Why teamwork? So, what does Andy mean with teamwork? What do you think?
So it's never, or most D&D games are never just the one person and the dungeon master or the game master. It's always a group of players. It's a party, and each and every one of them will have their own strengths and weaknesses. The fighters will be out fighting, the mages will be out maging, the healers will be healing, but everyone plays a role. So we all need to understand each other's strengths and weaknesses to be able to, at the end of the day, fight an ogre, open a door, depends on how inept your party is. So I think that absolutely is part of what teaches you can't do this by yourself. You need your party with you.
And what is typical for party 2?
What is typical for a party?
Yeah, for a D&D party, like the characters. Not everybody plays the same, right? It's not like Five Nights.
No. No. Well, one thing is to be having that variety and having, being different, playing different roles, but at the same time is also, again, understanding what the other person does and being able to cover for each other and being able to play along, which is maybe the most important part, because that's where also as a player, it teaches you to listen to others, to understand where they're coming from, to be able to solve the problem, the fight together.
Yeah. And my passive was also like, oh no, he's doing that again, right? So it's like the craziest things happened where I thought, oh my gosh, we are all doomed. But okay. Yeah, that's amazing. So teamwork, absolutely. So we have different characters like a dwarf, a mage, a knight. Sorry, I don't get the female versions right. My English skills are not good enough for that.
It's all right.
I hope it's okay. And they're different, right, in skills and what they can perform. So we learn teamwork. Perfect. Maybe one more thing to add is like I did improv theater, and I think role playing is very similar to improv theater. And just to give it one more context, creative problem solving. The other thing Andy said. How would you interpret this?
Creative problem solving. It absolutely teaches you to solve problems. It definitely isn't a creative way due to the nature of what you're doing. You are in a world that is unfamiliar to you. And I think it's very easy to connect that association with being in front of a customer or talking about them and trying to figure out how to help them. But it absolutely does from a perspective of, as I mentioned earlier, in your example of the ogre, like, okay, there could be the creative solution of either axing him in the face or trying to negotiate with him. Right? Yeah. That is a creative, different solution than the expected.
Yeah. Or craft something, right? Or hunt for something, or I don't know. Like you have an open world. You can do whatever you want, and yeah, this is sometimes a bit frightening, right? Because you can do literally everything.
That absolutely is, and I think it's the most frightening for the DM. Just because they can never expect what the players are going to try to figure out.
Yeah, and I think that's it was Paul or Andy who said, like, Paul, I think the DM controls everything, and you need to have real, like, maybe we talk about this later, what the DM also needs, the improvisation skills like this. And then we have developed empathy. How would you judge this? I think all of those things are right. So I think Andy hits it spot on. Right?
Absolutely, yeah. Nail on the head there with the empathy as well. I mentioned emotional intelligence earlier because it is really, so for me, is coming from the player's perspective, right? You have a couple of levels of empathy and trying to understand the other person. First of all, is putting yourself in your character's shoes. Who are they? What are their, where are they coming from a background perspective? What are their wants and needs? What are they coming? And then having to navigate that from another person's perspective and their relationships and how they react to the rest of the world. So I think that's like multiple levels of empathy that you need to have and to understand human relationships and emotions, which I think it's a core skill for sales solutions engineers as a whole.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if you think about it, you develop empathy for somebody who does not exist. Yeah. Right? So it blows my mind every time we talk about this. Let's go through some more comments. There's Paul. Good thing proper POV POCs don't last as long as Lydia's campaign.
That is a long sales process.
Yeah, but think about this. A campaign of POCs, like the epic version of. I mean, if you, we had accounts like, or deals that we worked, like huge corporations where we had POC after POC chained in different types of organizations. So maybe this is kind of a campaign. But can you learn something? Pardon?
The epic campaign of POCs.
The campaign of POCs. Is there something we can learn for POCs from playing?
I am yet to lead a POC as an SC. So this maybe is more of a question to you. Can we learn something?
Absolutely, you can learn for your life from playing D&D. And that's going back to the vision. Yes, a POC is something you should envision. You have to envision the result for your customer where you want to lead them. And I did one way to actually lead POCs by saying, I don't do them myself. The client has to do them. So I got them into the POC as my players. And then I went through it for 3 or 4 days, and we played this like I played it like a game master at the end, leading them to the result. And this is a kind of confidence you can develop. I try to I teach this in our organization how this could work. If you never played role-playing games like this, there's like, no, that doesn't work. You can't lead people that way. But you understand if you game mastered for several years, it works. Okay, cool. Kyle, adventure game also teaches you to prepare. Okay, cool. And bring all needed materials and to improvise anything you missed. Yes. Wow. What do you think?
That, again, absolutely nails it on the head there with the preparation. But I always like, for both demos and D&D sessions and encounters, or fights, as we call them, encounters, no plan survives contact with the enemy. But a plan is absolutely fundamental and necessary for anything you do. I wanted to mention something when it comes to preparations and demoing. I don't know if this is out of being fairly new to the SE role, but I am sometimes still at a phase where I develop a lot of scripts for the demo itself and going through it. A very odd way I have realized, I've been practicing this for a couple of years now, is my D&D character, the 7-year-old campaign, is very charismatic. She is a religious leader, very good with people. Does like speeches that goes like, encourages armies and everything.
Okay.
I am not that person. I am no leader whatsoever.
You are in some way.
I am in some way, but what I've sort of caught myself doing as I wanted to get my fellow players into the mood of it and put them in this moment that everyone will go like, oh, that is awesome. I sat down and I scripted a lot of her speeches. And during the sessions, I would, use the script.
I love it.
Sort of, I realized that as I was doing the demo scripts, it's like, I've done this before somewhere. Yeah, for riling armies.
Crazy. I just have a revelation because I remember a scene we played. So I was game master, and I recently watched, I think, A Knight's Tale. I think that's the English name, like with Heath Ledger. Do you know this film where he plays? You have to watch this. A Knight's Tale. I think it's A Knight's Tale, but I'm not sure. Help me out if you know in the comments. It's with Heath Ledger where he played this this jousting guy. So he goes jousting. He isn't a knight, but he jousts and wins everything. Right? Forget it. The point is, I told my group, every one of you needs to share another knight, and develop a kind of speech, right? And the best speech will actually win in some way. And they yelled like, no, I can't do that. I can't develop speeches. I've never done this before. Patrick, how do you, out of character, everything, right? So they're really complaining. And at the end, it was amazing. They just did, and it was so much fun, and they were so surprised by themselves. And so I think you go over it yourself. You are creative. You see what's in you. And I think that's big. It gives you the self-confidence, maybe even the self-confidence to speak, right? Yeah. And I remember my parents laughing about this. Don't play this stupid game, right? What does it help you? 4 hours and hours. I think it does. Okay, Russell, Paul, qualify. You know Russell. Okay, hi Russell.
I know Russell.
What about qualification? Is there any link to D&D and qualification of deals?
That's a bit of a weird one. Well, really, it's practically rolling perception at the end of the encounter, isn't it? Trying to figure out what is actually happening out there at the moment. Similar to what we're saying, you walk into a room. What's the first thing you do? You look around. You check for traps. You make sure that there's nothing happening that you don't, that the dungeon master doesn't provide you as a given information. It's a similar. I can sort of relate that to qualifying. Your account manager comes into you and he says customer wants X, Y, and Z. You walk into a room. Okay, what is X, Y, and Z? Why do they want that? That is absolutely the start of the qualification process.
Yeah.
I never thought about that. Thanks, Russ.
That's great. It's the same way when an adventure starts, right? And you're in this tavern, and someone. I had this before, right? So, and I thought it's a huge start, and here's the scroll where what you need to do, right? I gave it to the mage of the group, and he said, "That's not for me. I'm not interested." It's like qualified out. Okay, next adventure. Good. Let's close this book. Happened too.
That's amazing. Nope, not my thing.
So
To be
really,
honest, there is something to be learned from there of just saying no.
Oh no, that's amazing. Yeah, Knight's Tale. Okay, that's it. If you don't know, you have to watch this. So that's actually a command for the weekend. Please watch it.
Alrighty, I'll add it to my to-watch list.
Okay. Paul, again, The Art of War. Only 5 battles you know you can win. Amazing. Yeah. That, of course, that's qualification, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. Side note, I personally don't always do that.
Yeah.
But we live and learn.
So that means you go into fights also when you don't know if you win?
Yeah.
Do you have an example where this worked out pretty well?
It usually doesn't, but it's more of a lesson learned.
It's like joining the live stream here, right? You don't know if you win, but you joined.
I guess that's also a good way to explain why I sort of like throwing myself sometimes in situations that don't seem like winning, because you never learn unless you make mistakes. Or maybe not making mistakes, but you come into a situation where you're uncertain, and hey, here we are.
Yeah, I think this quote is pretty much also aligned with if you have resources, or people, or lives at stake, right? So instead of just yourself that you expose, right? Yeah, but good
That's
one.
an awesome quote.
Yeah, very good. Andy, qualify discovery. Discovery is a huge part of D&D, which is what Lydia was just talking about. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think most of role-playing is discovery, right? You want to discover who is actually the opponent. Yeah, whom do I need to encounter?
Yeah.
Cool. Muscle One. The Art of War. Yeah, was restated. Okay. Nice one. Maybe, let me see. I uploaded some banners. So there's some more we can bring D&D into sales engineering. That's a bit self-promotion, I know, and it's maybe not the best way to do, but I just wanted to point how nerdy I am. I really want to make a point here, because this map is really inspired by role-playing Dungeons and Dragons in its earliest roots, right? Because I write fantasy novels like in the style of D&D in German, and while writing this and making up a map for my new novel, I saw the link, like, okay, why not put the sales engineering applications on there, right? So you can be nerdy like everywhere in that sense. What do you think? When you go we said you play a role, right? Sometimes is it also to entertain customers? That's a typical example that we talk about. Like, should we be entertainers or not? And does D&D help us be entertainers?
I saw that was one of the questions you like asking, because it's you can steer a lot of people into either one camp or the other. Like, it's not my job to be an entertainer. Or I personally fall into the camp of, at the end of the day, it's people that sell. So if for you that is to be extremely knowledgeable and to know every bit and piece and be the subject matter expert, if it's to also be that and make people comfortable, make people trust you, make people be entertained by you. I'm personally absolutely in the camp of, if I can make someone laugh, that is mission accomplished.
Okay.
I do that in every conversation I walk into. As long as the person, at the minimum, smiles, that's a win for me. So if our SE is supposed to be entertainers, I don't know if they're supposed to be. I personally am, and I want to be.
Yeah, that's great. And do you learn this by playing? I mean, do you get like quicker on getting like intelligence jokes, or maybe you've seen the situation before? I don't know.
I think it's a good dry run of that sort of things, because first of all, you're in a situation where, in reality, for your own life, there is very few stakes. If you, as a character, make a joke and it doesn't land, nobody cares. Second, you are in a group, hopefully, or most of the time, Dungeons & Dragons is played in a group of friends. And that's the safest environment for you to try out different things.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. And Andy, you're more than right. People buy from people. And the more confident I am in my role, I mean, I think the better I can, other people can relate to me, right? Understand me, and all the kind of things. That's amazing. So let me see. I have some more pictures here. When I was new in sales engineering, like when was this? 2014, and we had our first like meetup and sales training. Somebody said, "Now we will role play this," and I said, "What? We role play? Oh, let's go!" I was completely on this. I loved it because I saw the benefits, right? Like developing traits or skills that I didn't have before. What about you? Do you like this sales role play when there is training and stuff like that? Have you had this before?
Yeah, so I've had it to a certain degree as part of my sort of onboarding training, and it was really beneficial to a huge degree. Not only to sort of give you like a safe space in a dry run of a lot of the things I was going to do as my day to day, but also giving you the example of all of the other roles that people play. Now you have the sales engineer, you have the account manager, you have the customer, different types of customers, different personas within them. So absolutely, there is a lot of benefit, and I hope a lot more people do it.
Mm-hmm. Why is there hesitation to role plays? Like,
it's weird.
There are always people who say, no role plays, please.
If you don't come from, you mentioned earlier, like a theater, right? You're coming from an improv. I personally don't have any background in theater. I was also never that kid.
We just have a course there, and I was there 5 times or so. But yeah, go on.
Okay. But no, like I think people who have gone through this in one way or another, either through like a role-playing game or through theater, or even I guess keep on seeing this example as like kids who like do little plays in front of their parents as they're growing up. Like for me, it's only Dungeons & Dragons, right? I haven't had any other experience like this when it comes to role-play. But if you think about it, it makes sense why people are. It's something new. It's something slightly embarrassing. Now they need to be actors. They almost feel like, and that could be completely off-putting. But I think if it depends on how you're positioning it. If for some people, if you just say like, "Hey, look, this is just a dry run of like giving you the example of what it would be like out there," might be better than just calling it, role playing. Again, it depends on your audience. We were talking about it earlier that you showed me that you have like a little character sheet for SEs, and I like almost like I started giggling because it was so awesome. But you said like, other people don't get it. I'm like, okay,
yeah,
makes sense. Know your audience.
I had a conversation with my brother-in-law, and we were driving a car, and he was up to a new position he wanted to get, and for that he needed to speak with his boss. So I said, okay, let's role play the situation. I said, what? No, what should this bring, right? Why, actually? And I said, yeah, because then you expose yourself into the situation once, and then it gets easier to do it when you're there. but he didn't dare to do it. So we ended up not doing it, and he didn't get the job. So, but I'm not saying he would have with role playing, but I think there's sometimes the hesitation that people don't believe that it actually has benefits. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't do it that often, but I think I get my kick regularly because I have two campaigns at the moment, like one Saturday and one Sunday. So I get a lot of exposure to that anyway. But I personally find myself, and even slightly embarrassing, I guess, even I was in the car today on the way back home to joining the on the stream. I sort of practiced a lot of the things that I wanted to say in the car, even if I don't say them. Just the fact that it's kind of gone through my head and out of my mouth as a sort of like it's there, it's happening. It makes it a lot easier. And it's the same with, so I do a lot of dry runs on my demos and my presentations. I present them to myself. And even I'm trying now to take the next step, which is to record myself and send it to people for like a asymmetric sort of feedback.
Yeah, amazing. You're owning your role. I mean, you're. This is very you're high skilled on that, right? So if you expose yourself, get the real time feedback. That's the same with online writing, right? Most people dread it because you get immediate feedback. That might mean no like, or it might be that's awful as a comment, right? So, but everything is immediate feedback and could hurt. So, but exposing yourself with it is, I think, crucial for success. And that's I love your idea. Yeah. Let's put in another comment. LinkedIn user. Maybe it's Stefan. I don't know. Sadly, there is no name. Yes, I always tell people to put their kids in acting or encourage participation in plays. In my opinion, it helps build confidence. What do you think, Lidia?
I completely agree. The other sort of avenue I usually recommend people to take, especially as part of a customer-facing role, public speaking classes. I've done only the one, but already that gave me. So I did a Toastmakers class back when I was living in Denmark, and even just that one, the intro session, because it's part of their structure, like you need to do a speech, and you get feedback on it immediate. People were writing down notes and giving them back to me almost immediately. That's the other avenue I would take if you're not into your theater or you don't feel comfortable with that. But definitely, at least a public speaking class, I think, is absolutely crucial for confidence building, if that's something you're struggling with.
Absolutely agreed. Yeah, and I did one too, and it changed everything. Right, you take this your whole life. Once people actually judge you live when you're like need to put up something. I think I did the Dale Carnegie one, which was also good. So I can only recommend doing it. Okay, Andy, in my hiring process, one of the final tasks I put in front of SEs is a role play exercise. I think it's very telling. Oh, Andy, I wish you were now online and could explain us more. What about your hiring, Lidia? Did you do role play?
So not as part of my hiring process, no. But I think that was also a part of sort of like the level I entered the team, because I come from no pre-sales experience into this role. So I guess depending on the perspective, it might be a little bit unfair. But I've definitely, as part of my development, have had sessions where role-playing was absolutely a thing that I've gone through.
So we talked about the character sheet. So I can put one up here. So let's see, what's a character sheet? Maybe you can quickly explain this, what you see. I hope you can see this. Nice. So what's a character sheet, like basically?
Yeah, so in Dungeons and Dragons terms, a character sheet is just the information that you have of who is your character. So similar to what you've made, Patrick, name, what is their class, so what is their core abilities, how much health they have, how much points, or how much they can get hit. Then you have different attributes, or abilities, their core abilities, how strong they are, how dexterous, how intelligent, how charismatic, different skills that they have, like being acrobatic or being good with nature. And then you have like all the different bits and bobs of like, do they have a sword or a spear or all of that.
Yeah. I had a friend I played with, and as students, we went to the gym together, and we sometimes joked, right, about our strengths, right? So, yeah, now you roll the die and then you make the push, right? The question I have: do you sometimes think of yourself in kind of, numeric attributes?
I love the idea, and it's a little bit cliche, but the whole idea that as you age, you level up. So that's definitely something I keep on using. The other one is having played D&D for so long, we have absolutely gone through the exercise of like, ooh, what would you think your highest ability would be? Are you the strongest in the group? Are you the the fastest? Are you the most intelligent? It's kind of difficult to put a numeric sort of factor to yourself because I don't know about you, Patrick, but I'm very self-conscious and I always give myself very low numbers. I think a good exercise would be, and I've sort of had these conversations recently around career development, is to do it with someone. Sit down with someone and for them to make you a character sheet. So, put your name on the top. What is your class? SE could be a class, and then put in where they think your most, your highest qualities are, or your best qualities are, and potentially where your worst are. But yeah, that's actually, now when I think about it, that's a cool idea. I might do it with someone.
Yeah, I mean, it's this. There is from Simon Sinek. There's a book like about the team why. I think, and I did this exercise with a former colleague, and you find their purpose, right? So we sit together, and I would moderate for 4 hours with questions, and he explained me his life, right? And after that, because they are guided questions, I could put my finger on his purpose in life, his why. So, for me, this was pretty similar to role playing, to like game mastering, because you moderate, you shape, right? I love it. And hi, Marjorie, great to see you. I don't know either why this is just a LinkedIn user. It's weird. Okay.
Now we know.
Good to have you here. Good to see you. And what I showed you before was this. So I have this one course, The Hero's Journey of the Sales Engineer, and this is the book of it. And the main idea was and is to develop your own character, right? With the sheet. Don't get it sharp, but this is what I just showed on the screen. And it's interesting because before we start actually with the course, you would do a strength test, for example, like I used the Gallup one. You would enter all your information. You would scale yourself, like there's a little sheet on how to get your attributes right and correctly like spread out. And that's amazing. And after that, or during the course, you gain experience points and you can actually raise certain things. So when you think, okay, I'm pretty good at discovery, you give yourself a unique strength like discovery. And this way you rise in a level. And there's one thing I find particularly interesting. This is your deal size you feel comfortable with. That's for me the level, right? So if you think of it, what was your biggest deal size so far? Right? You don't need to open up like...
no. But no, I see where you're coming from, yeah.
Yeah. Because I think there is a level like where we feel comfortable, right? And sometimes you need to be aware, or even your manager should be aware of, okay, Lydia, you always closed $2 million deals, right? I won't put you on the 100 million because it might feel different for you.
Yeah.
It's a theory, and all my participants did a kind of I have a chart on that with over 100 numbers where they entered this, and you pretty much see that there is like a deal zone they feel comfortable with. It's pretty interesting, yeah? When you start doing this with those attributes and people attribute themselves. Yeah, you can see a lot about yourself. That's pretty cool. And in terms of, I mean, it goes a bit in a different direction, but do you have mentors or someone you look up to? Maybe even from the role-playing domain? I'm not sure.
No, so I do have a lot of mentors. I have been extremely lucky in my career, not only as an SC, but also just as a technical person or like a person in IT. Since uni, since like my previous job, since like I've joined VMware, I have been extremely lucky with mentors along the way, both official and unofficial. Even people like Marjorie, that is just someone that I've met through the Pre-Sales Collective, another person working in VMware. Just having someone to look up to and point at them and say like, oh, I want to be Russ when I grow up, right? Like that's I think that is so important to have those people around you, especially as you're starting off your career. Because I don't know about you, Patrick, but for me, I honestly didn't know what like being a sales or solutions engineer was before I kind of got into it. I had this notion, which also caused me like. So when I was still a network engineer, my idea of like this sort of pre-sales role was an architect, right? And those architects, like, gosh, they knew their stuff, right? Like they were like 5, 10, 15 years ahead of me in their career. Yeah. And I would have even then sort of mentor figures that would tell me like, ooh, you would be great at this pre-sales thing. You need to look into it. And I'm like, awesome. I'm taking it as feedback. And when I get to a technological level or to a knowledge level that you guys are at, absolutely going to go down that avenue. I definitely did not think this will happen 2 years practically into my career in IT, which is causing all sorts of imposter syndrome problems. And that's why it's so key to have those people around you to say, like, first of all, like, I've been there. We all started off like this. It's normal to not know what you're doing. I have a colleague who I keep on quoting him because I love it. What we do is sometimes feel like it's not a real job. Like, it's so different. It's so wild sometimes of like, going from like all of the demos are different. The customers are different. Like going on site, like, going to sessions, in normal times, that is just wild if you think about it.
Yeah.
Mentors are super important.
So it's like every new adventure we hope for in the D&D environment, right? It should be different, should be something new.
We need the tavern keep to tell us like, oh, down the road you'll find so and so.
Yeah, that's the AE, right? Hey, come with me. There's this huge adventure. Join me.
They dangles like a bag of gold in front of you and go like, no, this is what we need to get. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and you say, no, sorry, I had this last year. I don't need it again, right? but we have the qualification again. That's amazing. The show is called The Social Sales Engineer, right? Can we learn something when we want to build our brand as sales engineers from roleplay?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. It really depends on how you. So I'm a big fan of my characters having themes or having like a bigger story. I think that might be coming from our joint love, Patrick, of writing and fiction. I think to a certain degree, it's also going back to storytelling, like your own brand. And I've sort of made this decision about my own personal branding at the start of this year. So it's still very fresh in my mind, all the decisions I made.
Yeah.
But it's telling your story. And it absolutely is going back to that. Who are you? Where do you come from? And where do you see yourself in that flow of the story going to? And your brand should reflect that to a certain degree.
Yeah, exactly. That's also my thought in some way. And writing helps, right? As you say, if you play D&D, you write because you write your background or whatever. Or as a game master, you write actually the adventure. You might even write this down. So I can only say it's the same for me, right? It's easy to write a post or actually to be creative and come to an idea. I guess because we did this in the past. Greg, should we pay pre-sales in loot boxes and XP? No, I think they can, from their salary, they will be able to.
I think euros in your case and pounds in my case is the better way to go at this,
But it's a great idea, especially for trainings. But as I said, I did this kind of training with experience points and stuff. Maybe it was me, but there are always people in the group that don't like it. And then it falls apart, right? So yes, maybe you can pay a part of it, but maybe it's even better to have gamification in your organization, like a leaderboard in Salesforce or something like that, where you can gain experience points. I think this is very nice. We had Bloomfire. I remember Bloomfire in our organization as MuleSoft, and it counted when you posted, and it counted who watched your knowledge that you shared. So you raised, and this was a game for me, like gaining experience point. Another one read my post, great, another experience point, right? So I think this is great stuff from my perception.
Gamification absolutely works. I was recently a part of a session that was practically like teaching us a new set of technologies. And the fact that it was a game against other teams like around Europe was like, I've never seen the group, like my own team, like being so like into it. It was like almost 2-3 hours, and it was amazing. And I personally learned so much. I think in that one session, I learned far more about that specific technology than I did with like transfer of information and all of that. It's such a good idea, and like the experience level absolutely fits when it comes to training as well. You know, you go through this course, you do this demo, you do this, you get, you gain to level 7. Awesome.
Yeah, no, great one. Andy, great. So here's a quote, I think. One of my favorite quotes from Gary Gygax, the creator of D&D. I didn't know that. Something new. You will breathe life into the stillness, giving meaning and purpose to all the actions which are to follow. How great is that to think about as an SE? Okay, that's the thing to choke. You will breathe life into stillness. Okay, yes. And I think maybe first your thoughts, Lidia.
I love that quote. That is amazing. To a certain degree, like I try so hard not to be sort of bigging. I can very easily dramatize like my role as an SE. I keep on saying this. I'm at the moment I'm aligned to healthcare. So it's so easy for me to fall into this pitfall of like, oh, I am changing lives, right? Like I can potentially help someone. And quotes like this, Andy, really don't help. But I think it's such a cool quote, and it's especially if you really are into what it is to be an SE. It is such a cool perspective on it. It's a different thing from the difference between being just a demo person or a technical resource, and between being someone who provides value, who brings in expertise, who can see like the bigger picture and help with that. Yeah,
I love it. And I also agree, Andy. So with you, Lidia, also, it's like you bring forward the vision, right? So once you join the customer call, you are shaping it, right? You are giving the whole thing a structure. Of course, together with the AE, you should have a plan. That's why I believe sales engineers have to be part of the account strategy, always. How will we go forward? What will we do? They need to be part of this, really to envision where to lead the client to. And that's game mastering, 100%, right? So, cool one, Andy. Very nice quote. Meaning and purpose. That's so amazing. Yeah? Perfect. So let's see. I mean, we were at the social media. We had a brand. So and I really love this, and I think you're right. So we discussed this. There's one more question I had. Yes, this one. I love this question. I love asking it. Do you have an idea? What's the failure that made you that successful, like that you are now? Is there something or something similar that you say, okay, I'm glad I did this failure? You said you're going into battles without being prepared.
So the way I would sort of answer this is there's like failure in the sense of things didn't work out the way I planned them or I wanted them to. The first thing that popped into my head as I read that question was when I was first applying for universities, right? So that was my first ever biggest failure, as I got denied from all of them due to many other reasons. But at the end of the day, that one failure gave me a gap year between graduating high school and starting uni again, where I realized that the direction I was going is not the direction that I actually wanted. That is the point where I got in contact for the first time with IT and realized and actually got sold that being, initially a network engineer is something that I will be fantastic at, and just signed up for that. And one of my biggest failures, okay, for the first time ever, having like an academic failure where nobody wanted me from a university perspective, which was huge for me back then, like just crushing, right? And sort of pivoting that point to a direction that I never even thought I would, because like I wasn't that kid that was like really into her computers, or like, my dad was an engineer or all that, like none of that. Like I was not, the traditional destined to be an IT person story. It was that one failure that sort of pivoted my entire life into that direction.
Amazing.
So I would say that was, if you count that as a failure, yeah, absolutely. That was the failure.
I love it. And it's inspiring, right? I mean, hey, whatever happens, you will live on and you will live good.
Sometimes you roll a 1, sometimes you roll a 20, right? That's the thing with life.
And that's the amazing thing about role plays, the randomness in there. It's just amazing, right? There are sometimes, I don't know if this is the same for your group, but we had really experts in in fighting or hunting, and we sent them to do the task. We were sure they will make it. They failed, and then the whole group who didn't know what to do at all, they need to care for the problem. It's amazing. Evan, 100% agreed with gamification. Yeah, definitely a great way to encourage participation in a number of areas. Absolutely. And I see a lot of sales engineering leaders strive for that, to reach a gamification level, to get the group actually do things like that are not tied to MBOs or like stuff like that, right? And nudge them a bit. So it's a cool way. Greg, some of those skills could be like your D&D characters' feats and special powers.
Yep.
Very good. Is there something on the D&D character sheet that every SE should level up?
I would say the one thing I keep on seeing as a new person coming into the SE role, right? Every single person that I've met so far and I've seen in action, I think would benefit into focusing more on the story than the tech they're selling. And I've personally seen so much improvement across my small circle of people that I know. So we're definitely going in the right direction. Less demo monkeys, more storytellers.
Perfect. Yeah, that's a good one. Niraj, hi Niraj. Do you feel that transitioning from an engineer to a solution engineer could lead you to losing your technical skills? Wow. That's a good one for the last 20 seconds.
That is a very uncomfortable question. Personally, for me, I'm sad to say, but yes. I used to be very techy in the sense, so I used to do a lot of support roles for specific vendors. So I used to be incredibly technical in that field. For the last 20 months, I have focused and pivoted a lot more, first of all, into new technologies, and second of all, into what is an SE rather than what is the tech. So it's, but at the end of the day, is if you want to be technical, more technical SE, I think absolutely you can do that. It just depends on where your focus is.
Yeah.
But I have definitely lost my techie mojo.
I think it's just the hours you expose yourself to the tech is reduced, and of course, maybe you don't, grow that much anymore. I don't know, but definitely, and other things become important, right? I think you start to see the greater picture. Why is the product there? Why is tech there? Why do we need to sell it? And why do I get salary as a backend person, right? Because I don't know about you, but as I was a backend person, we hated sales. They sold something, can't build, we don't have this product, right? What do we sell? Like, and then you are in sales. I always remember this. And that's all. One more thing from Jessica. Yeka. And sometimes you roll a 20, other times you roll a 1. In either case, the game continues. Maybe not for your character, right?
Oh.
Are you killing characters in your...
Yes. Things matter. Consequences matter.
Amazing. I love it. Yeah. That's the biggest weapon for the game master. Okay. I used to ask this question, this last questions. For you personally, give us 2 hacks or tips about anything. So, I love to say either the new stock that I should buy, or the gardening tip, or how to walk best. I don't know. Something that you think are worth sharing.
Okay, love the question. First one, learn to type faster. That was definitely a goal of mine the past couple of years, and I have been slowly but surely improving like my typing speed. So, and the goal is to go to 120 words per minute. Then I think I'm at around 60, 70. I haven't checked in a while. So I haven't been good at that. But absolutely, find a keyboard that you find it's comfortable and just go with that. It would improve everything you do, because so much of what we do in our day-to-day is typing.
Have you learned the technique?
Yeah. Well, I never been taught that, but I do touch type. It's called touch typing in English, where you don't look at the keyboard. You just sort of go at it. The other one is to talk to people, and I have a little story from yesterday about that. There's local business that sells gardening stuff, houseplant stuff. And the 2 girls that are owning the business actually came and delivered the things for me. And I just invited them in because they seemed like cool people to have around. We had a cup of tea, and now I'll be joining them for board games, right? So always my tip would be always say yes to a chat, and always be open to have people in your life, because you never know when you strike gold.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. I love it. Thank you very much. We are 3.5 minutes over. But we have great questions. Thank you, everybody who joined, who watched, who asked questions. It was a huge pleasure. It was a lot of fun today. Thank you, Lidia. It was a pleasure having you. And any final words from you?
No, absolutely. Thanks for everyone in the chat. It was very stressful to a certain degree, seeing so many people actually popping in. And I love the fact that there's so many, I expected more question marks of what are they talking about? But the fact that so many people are into their D&D and so many people understand where we're coming from is just an absolute win for me today. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Subscribe to the channel, please. Follow us on LinkedIn, Lidia and me. We see you there. All the best. Bye-bye. Cheers.